So now once you come to the Fortinet.com and just Google for Fortigate firewall, you need to just go to the Fortinet website, and over here you would see the next generation firewall plus the Gartner report or the Magic Quadrant, which you have already seen. Let me just open up a new tab just to give you a quick um, view of that. Okay, so see, this was the exact quadrant that we have gone through, and mostly all the firewalls, make sure that they present this on their websites. If they are in the leaders quadrant, if they are not, then probably they would not like to, showcase that. But okay, now coming back over here, I would like to introduce to some of the models that we have under the FortiGate firewall. Okay, so you have 1800F, you have 2600F, 4200F, 4400. So basically, these are the higher end devices. Okay. Now in this section, okay, you would see basically all the kind of devices or all the kind of FortiGate firewalls that we have, and the way they are characterized, or I would say categorized. So in this section, you have something which is called as the chassis. Okay. Now, if you click on that, you would see a list of categories which starts from chassis, then you have ultra high end, or this is basically from high to low. Okay. Or if you want to start from the lower to high, then you have to read from the lower side, which is data center firewall. Then you have virtual machines, then you have entry level, mid range, high end, ultra high end, and then finally you have chassis. Okay. So what we are looking right now is actually the chassis of the firewalls. Okay, 7,000 series, 5,000 series. So just by looking into the threat protection, right, the SSL inspection, see the amount of traffic that it can handle, or the amount of threat protection that it can handle. It's 520 Gbps. That's a lot. This is basically for your internet service provider. Firewalls which is deployed on the internet service providers are generally chassis. Okay, if you look into the interface section, you can see 40 G ports, all right, and QSFP. So QSFP is basically you have a fiber port which has the capability of handling 40 gigs of traffic coming in and out. Okay, so that is the amount of traffic that one chassis can handle. Okay, now what I would like to show you is I'll just take one of the firewalls. Let's just say 1800. Okay, just to give you a glimpse of how exactly your FortiGate firewall looks like. Okay, and let me go ahead and slowly, one by one, step by step, will show you how exactly a firewall looks like from the hardware's perspective. Okay, all right. So this is FortiGate 1800F. Okay, now this FortiGate 1800F is basically one of the high-end FortiGate firewalls, which is mostly into the multinational companies, or companies which is functioning at national level or multinational level. Okay, those are the companies, or they have hundreds of branches out there, thousands of employees. Those are the companies which would basically deploy high-end firewalls, and 1800F is one of them. Okay, this is just for a little bit of explanation of how exactly a firewall looks like when you are working with an MNC. Okay, now starting from the left, you see status, alarm, HA, and power. So that is just to give you an idea of what is the current physical status of your device. Is it okay or not? So green is basically all okay. Okay. The next one is console. So console is basically when you want to get when you are trying to access the firewall for the first time. There's no configuration. You need to log into the firewall. Then you need the console. Or let's say, for example, something bad happens and you're not able to access the GUI or the CLI, you might have to reset the firewall. Then also you use the console. Then you can see over here, you have something which is called as the USB. USB is mostly used when you are trying to figure out whether you need to save the configuration on one of your servers, or you would like to save that configuration on the USB drive. Okay, or let's say, for example, you would like to boot the firewall from the USB because the existing firmware had some issues and it got corrupted. You are not able to log into the firewall. Your firewall is not even booting up correctly. So what you do is you can put in your USB and then boot the firewall from the USB. This is one of the it's one of the solutions when something goes bad. Okay. All right. Now, the next one is called as the management 1 and management 2. Okay. Now, by default, any firewall or any FortiGate firewall comes with a default IP address of 192. If you guys want to write this down, you can. 192.168.1.99. That is the default IP address of any FortiGate firewall out there. Doesn't matter if it is an entry level, mid level, or high level. It will always have an IP address of 192.168.1.99 on the management interface. Okay, if it has one interface of management. Let's say, for example, in our case, it's a high-end device. So, and since it's a high-end device, it is going to have an IP address of 192.168.1.99. Okay, so 1.99 is management 1, 2.99 is management 2. Okay. Now, the next one is the HA. So HA is called as high availability, and high availability is basically for, ensuring that if you configure your firewall in an HA setup, okay, in that case, you need to ensure that the configuration on your FortiGate firewall is sync between the two devices. Okay, so the HA cable is used for that. We'll have a good amount of discussion when it comes to the HA scenario and the session for that. But as of now, just understand that when it comes to the HA, you have a dedicated port for that so that you can sync up two devices in the HA setup that we have. Active, passive, doesn't matter. Okay, let's move ahead. Okay. Now you can see over here that you again it starts off from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and it's moving till 9 as well. So I'm assuming that it has maybe 12 or maybe 16 Ethernet ports. Now, what is Ethernet ports? Ethernet port is basically where your firewall has an RJ45 connector. Okay, and you can use Cat5, Cat5e, Cat6, or Cat7 cable. Okay, that is why you need an Ethernet connector or an Ethernet cable, all right, to connect the cable to the FortiGate firewall and maybe connect the other end to a router or maybe a switch or maybe a server or whatever the case may be according to the client's requirement. These are 1 Gbps in connection. Now let's move ahead. So they are, yeah, so this is till 16. They have, so basically they have 16 Ethernet ports. Now from the 17, you can see it's going to 17, 18, 19 until 24. We have something which is called as SFP. Guys, any idea when you say SFP, what does that mean? Any idea? It's okay if it is you don't know. So if one says fiber, yes. Can anybody let me know what is the full form of SFP? Moon command, no. Okay, it's fine, no problem. I'll anyway explain this. So required SFP module. So true. The full form of SFP is small form factor pluggable. Naresh, exactly. So the small form factor pluggable is basically a kind of connector, just like you have Ethernet port to connect the Ethernet cable and an RJ45 connector to this particular connector. We have SFP, which is called fiber. Okay, you have fiber port. Okay, you connect a fiber cable to this. Okay, now let's move on. You have from 17 to 24 as the SFP, then you have something which is called as SFP 28. It's again the same thing, but then the amount of transmission speed that you get is higher as compared to SFP. Then you have something which is called as QSFP plus. QSFP plus is, so basically just normal SFP is 1 gig, SFP 28 is 10 gig, and QSFP plus is 40 gig. Okay, so this is how it is categorized. All right, so this 1800 firewall basically has the capability to ensure that the in and out of the traffic is happening at 40 gig of speed. That is the amount of capability that this particular firewall has. Okay, so this is about the interfaces that you have on the firewall. Now let's do one thing. Let's go ahead and have a look into the hardware of this particular firewall. Let's have a look into the the inside of this particular firewall and see what do we have in this in this architecture. Okay, so let's move on. Let's move on. Coming into the FortiGate firewall, and let's have a look into the processor. And there you go. So you have something which is called as 40 SPU Np7. Can everyone hopefully should be able to see this? Pankaj, your question is which one is most used in production? So again, you cannot say that 600 or 1000 or 1200 or 1800 is mostly used. Why? Because every company has a different environment, every company has a different architecture, every company has a different requirement, right? So can you say that which company, what is the standard rate of employees for a company? No, because a startup could have two, maybe four, or maybe six employees, whereas in a multinational company can have 2000, 4000, or 6000 employees. So there is no standard when it comes to the number of employees a company should have. Same thing applies over here as well, that there's no standard when it comes to the amount of or the product or the firewall that should be used in any of the environment. It basically depends on the amount of amount of traffic which is going through, what is the speed, how much is the the requirement of that particular company. This is all is required to understand the capacity, and then according to the capacity we have to figure out what is the best match when it comes to the firewall. Okay, so this is basically a design question where you try to figure out that what is the best what is the best firewall which would suit or which would fit in this company's environment. Okay, let's say for example there is an ABC company which have a requirement where 1200D is much more suitable. Then you have some company which is called as XYZ. That company, the requirement is such that it requires let's say 4000 or 5000 series device. Okay, so it basically depends on the requirement of the client or the customer or the company. Okay, so there's no standard that I can say, all right, 1800F is basically the standard and everywhere it is being used. Okay, it all depends on the requirement. Okay, now, so Ashish says 60D and 80D is used in my company. Good, good. So 60D and 80D is still an entry level of the entry level FortiGate firewall, but then that's fine. That doesn't make any difference. Okay, now let's come to the process over here. So we can see that we have something which is called as 40 SPU Np7. Okay, we'll talk about this later in the session as well. But Np7 is called as network processor. Okay, NP is called as network processor, and it depends on what kind of firewall that you have. Okay, so for example, you have a lower end firewall, then you might have NP3 or NP4. Okay, these are dedicated chips, these are hardware chips. Okay, apart from your CPU and memory, you have these dedicated chips. Why are they being used? See, they are used just because when the traffic is getting processed by the FortiGate firewall, it make use of these dedicated chips. What happens is that since you are making use of dedicated chips, the CPU and the memory is always free. Okay. Mohammed, you will get the recorded videos, don't worry. Now, where was I? Yes. So when it comes to the the CPU and the memory, just like you when you buy a laptop, a gaming laptop, right? So apart from your CPU and memory, your gaming laptop also has something which is called as graphic card, right? What does graphic card do? It basically ensures that whenever you are executing an application, a software application which is heavy, or you are trying to play a game, okay, the graphic card will basically process that traffic so that your CPU and memory is free and is basically can be used to process other kind of traffic or the processor or the applications which is inside that particular laptop. Okay, Same concept applies over here as well, that your dedicated hardware chips, Np7 being one of them, is basically used to ensure that it makes use of this particular chip, processes the traffic, and your CPU and memory is always free to ensure that you are not basically um, consuming a lot of CPU and the memory power. Okay, all right. So we can see that this over here is Np7 and Cp9. So Np7, as I told you, right, that Np7 is basically called as a network processor. Network processor is a chip which is basically used to handle network traffic, a type of network traffic, for example, IPsec, VPN, or ICMP, or layer 3 traffic. Then you have something which is called as CP9, or CP9 is basically also called as content processor. Content processor is basically used when you are trying to process traffic, which is basically your UTM features. Okay, you have AV, you have application control, you have IPS. All right, so all these features or all these traffic which you have to scan the traffic for IPS, or you have to scan the traffic through your application control, then you will use the content processor hardware chip. Okay, so again, the job is to make sure that your CPU and memory is always free. Okay, so Np7 and Cp, or I would say network processor and content processor, make sure that all the traffic is being scanned by them. So your CPU and memory is always free for other tasks. Okay. Then you have the amount of interfaces that you have, or the amount of hard disk space that you have. Okay. You have dual AC, basically the SMPS, the hard disk, the amount of hard disk that you have, which is 2 TB. Okay. This depends on the model that you have. So every model has a different amount of hard disk that it can carry. Okay. All right. So that is when it comes to Fortigate or Fortinet, Fortigate 1800F firewall. Okay. Okay. So we can look over here. You can basically, if you want to filter out, you can basically use a chassis ultra high end. So if I do an ultra high end, you would see 6300 and 6500. If I select high end, then I will say 4400, 4200, 3700. Then I scroll down, I see a lot of devices. So it starts from 1000D. Okay. If you are looking at the high end devices, it starts from 1000D. Or you can say, when it comes to high end devices, 1000 series are being used. Okay. If I go to the mid range, okay, you can see 100 series devices, 100F to 900D. You have 100 series. If I go to entry level, then you have 10 series, 80F, 80E, and basically, yeah, so it's basically starts from 30E. Yeah, so it starts from 30E, goes till 80F. That's the 10 series for entry level. Mid level is 100 series, high end is 1000 series. Okay, and then the ultra high end is basically 6000 series, and then you have chassis, which is 7000 series. Okay, makes sense. So this is the amount of products that they have, starting from Soho, small office, home office, to ISP level. Okay, so this is the amount of um, products that they carry. Okay, all right. Now let me go ahead and start off. Okay, so guys, this would be your lab. Okay, where you will have an end user machine. Okay, you can see it over here. Then you have something which is called as remote user, or basically a Windows machine from the outside. So if you want to test something, you would be basically using the remote machine, and the internal machine would also be used to ensure that what kind of traffic is basically going out of the firewall, and is it allowed or is it not allowed. Okay, so we'll be making use of these two end devices. Okay, you have two firewalls over here. One is called as the Fortigate master. The other one is called as the Fortigate slave. All right. Now, this will be configured as an HA, but then in our initial classes, we'll not configure the HA. we'll start off with the basic setup. Once we understand and go through what exactly or how exactly you configure the FortiGate firewall, then the next step would be to configure an HA and then proceed further. So this is the HA is basically one of the advanced topics. We'll take that slowly and gradually, but we'll start with the basics: how to get to the GUI, how to get to the CLI, and all those stuff. Okay, so this is the topology that we'll be using with. Okay, and we'll make changes as and when required in our coming classes and options. Okay, all right, now let's do one thing. Let me go ahead and click on the Fortigate master. Okay, let me do one thing. Let me just show you that once you log in, right? So this is the URL. Okay, once you log in, these are the options that you will get. Okay, now what you need to do is you don't really need to understand what all these options does. What you should know is that if I click on this, okay, you would be able to see this particular page. Okay, this is how it should come up, and this would be giving you the prompt to log in. Now by default, your FortiGate firewall does not have any password. Okay, but the username is admin. So since I have just started this firewall, okay, the username is admin and there is no password. So I have to change it. Even the FortiGate, as soon as I enter, it will ask me to change the password, and then you can securely log into the device. Okay, so let me show you how that happens. So I'll come over here. I'll say admin, enter. Okay, now it is asking me for the password, so I don't have any password. Plus, by default, the Fortigate does not come with any password, so I'll just hit enter. See what exactly it is saying. It's saying you're forced to change your password. Please input a new password. Okay, so my new password is basically one of the strongest password out there, which is called password. Okay, so I'll enter password. Oopsie, sorry, so I have to admin. Okay, now I'll enter password to confirm it. Okay, see, I'm able to log in. So once I am able to log in, the first command that I would recommend all of you guys to run is called as get system status. What does this command do? This will give you an overall picture of what exactly your FortiGate firewall is deployed, how it is deployed, what is the timing, what is the firmware, what are the updates, and what is the serial number, what is the host name. So basically an overall view of your FortiGate firewall. Okay, so I'll hit enter. Okay, let's see. I hope you're able to see this. If the font is not, I hope the font is good enough for you guys. Okay, so once I execute this, you have something which is called as version. Okay, version is basically the firmware version that you have. Okay, just like in your laptop, you might have Windows 8, Windows 7, Windows 10. Okay, just like that, you have the firmware of the FortiGate firewall as well. Okay, plus it also tells you about the VM, what kind of VM is being used. So we know that it's using KVM. Okay, now the next is 6.4.1. What is that? This is your actual FortiOS version. So the major one, the major release is 6.4 and the minor is 1. Okay, so if you want, you can basically go from 6.4.1 to 6.4.2, 4.3, 4.4, 4.5, and 4.6. Okay, and the major release is basically 6.4. So if you want to upgrade the device to a major release, you will go from 6.4 to 7.0. That is the next one. Okay, now why we are using 6.4? See, the latest is 7.0, which was just released a couple of months back. Okay, now this is the practice that whenever you are working on a firewall, you should always be n-1. Now what is n-1? N-1 is basically latest minus 1. So the latest FortiOS version is 7.0. Minus 1 is 6.4. Okay, hence we are using 6.4 over here as well. Okay, now the next one is the virus database. extended database. Okay. Now, do you see one thing over here? This is the date over here. It says 2018-4-9. Can anybody give me a guess why the virus database is having such a low value? Guesses. I'm not saying you need to know. Random guesses. What do you think is the reason behind this? License. Okay. Okay. All right. So Ali, this is actually correct. So yes, Rajita. So you don't have a license. This is an evaluation license, right? Which is valid for 15 days. Hence, no Fortinet company or basically no firewall basically allows or gives you licenses um, just to try out the device, right? It gives you the evaluation and asks you that if you want, you can use this firmware to evaluate, and then if you need to extend, you can basically hire the licenses from us. Okay. So in 15 days, you will not have any updates. Okay. When it's come to virus, extended database, IPS, application control, you will not get updates. But would these work? Absolutely. Okay. All the blades, I will tell you how to basically make it work in our lab environment, so that you know that how to make use of it and apply the different functionalities that you can. Okay. All right. You can look over here. You can get to know the serial number as well. Dominic, when I say blades, I basically mean the UTM features. The web filter, your application control, your IPS. Okay, this is what I mean when I say blades. Okay, now you can see the serial number. Serial number is this. Okay, now since we are using an evaluation license and the course is obviously going to be extended till a month or maybe a little bit more than that, you need to extend the licenses on the firewall as well. Okay, so what we'll do is I'll tell you one of the ways that you can reset the firewall so that it will again extend the value of 15 days to the basically it will reset the value to 15 days more. Okay. Now the next is, if you look over here, the license status, it says valid. Okay. So valid basically means that as of now it is valid. Uh, the evaluation license is basically expiring on 26th of August, which is basically 15 days, right? Now, once we reach 26th of August, I'll again reset this so that you'll add 15 days more to it. Okay. Now you have something which is called as VM resources. VM resources basically tells you the amount of CPU and the memory which is being used by this virtual machine. Okay. Then you have something which is called as log hard disk, not required in the virtual environment. Okay. Then you have the host name. The host name is Fortigate VM64 KVM, which we can change once we start the configuration. The first thing which we'll do is to change this particular value. Okay. Why? Because look over here. What is the name that we have given? It says Fortigate master. But when I look over here, the host name is Fortigate VM64 KVM. So we need to change this value. We will be doing that as well. Okay. Now operation mode is NAT. Okay, we'll talk about this. Then you have a lot of different options over here as well. Then you have the branch point, and you have the architecture is in 64-bit architecture. Then you have the system time. Okay, you have the HA mode, which is standalone. Okay, so you get a lot of information from these. Okay, now what happens is that, okay, just by looking into the get system status command, I see that, okay, this device is a standalone device. It is not configured as an HA. Okay, plus it's an evaluation license because it does not have any licenses. Plus it has this much amount of CPU and the memory. Okay, plus the host name is default, which is Fortigate VM64, and I have to change that. So basically it gives you a lot of information about the existing setup of your firewall. Okay, and then according to the client's requirement, you can change whatever configuration that you want. Okay, so how do you get this? You get this by get system status. Okay, one thing more. Anybody who is trying to prepare for the certification, just make sure that you go through this command and try to understand what all options do you get. Because what happens is when you are going through the examination, okay, um, at times there are questions which would basically ask you, how would you identify, or how would you know from the command, what kind of HA setup that you have. So basically you can use get system status and identify that, okay, I have it's a standalone device, or oh, hey, you know what, this is an active passive device or an active device, whatever the case maybe, you would be able to know that. Okay, right. Okay, so basically this is when what we call it as the get system status. Okay, now let's have a look into the interfaces of your firewall. Okay, now how do we do that? First of all, let's go ahead and log in first. The session got expired, hence we were kicked out. Password is password. I mean, if I have to look or check the interface, or what information do I have in the interface, the command to execute that is called as show system interface. Okay, so you can see that you have port one, which is having a root VDOM. Then you have mode, which is called as DHCP. Will tell you about what a VDOM is. But as of now, it's a DHCP mode. This is the it is allowed with the ping HTTPS, and you have port two, port three. But you can see one thing: these none of these are being used, or none of the IP addresses are being used over here. Why? Because there is no static information which is configured over here. That is why no IP address. Okay, all right. Now there's one more command which is being used, which is called as get system interface. Okay, what does this command do? Because we have just executed a command which was called as show system interface. Now we are executing a command a little bit different, and now it is saying as get system interface. So what is the difference? Okay, so when it comes to the show system interface, it is going to show you what configuration that you have on the interface. Okay, but when it comes to get system interface, it is going to show you the output, the result, the end output, or the end result of whatever the command which was executed on the interface. Okay, show will tell you what is the configuration which is there, and get system interface will tell you what was the result of the configuration which was put on that particular interface. So if I enter over here, okay, do you see it is basically showing me that, okay, there's a port which is called as port 1, the mode is DHCP, and the IP address is this. Were you able to see this IP address on the show system interface? No. See, show system interface, port 1, configuration is DHCP. So basically what it's showing you, this is the configuration on port 1. Okay, but in the get system interface, it is showing you this is the result of the configuration. Okay, so you have this IP address, you have such and such options and features, and all the IP addresses which you have on the other ports. So we can see these are all zero. Why? Because we haven't configured anything, and this was DHCP, so it automatically got an IP address from where? From the ISP. Okay, so this ISP is basically one of my EVNG interface, okay, which is being used as a DHCP server as well. So what I did was I used the port 1 of the Fortigate firewall as a client. Okay, and this is also by default. Okay, your port 1 is always DHCP client, so it is always trying to fetch an IP address. Okay, that is the reason I was able to get an IP over here. Now we can see the IP address that we are receiving is 172.16.25.28. Okay, that's the IP address I have. Okay, now what I'll do is, now we know that when it comes to the get system interface, we see the result, and when it comes to show system interface, we see the configuration. Okay, now so now we know what exactly the IP address that I have. Now let's try to figure out what exactly are the routes that I have. Okay, how do I do that? You say show router static. Okay, this would basically show you the if there is any static entries out there. So by default, there is no static entry. Okay. Now I'll do one thing. I'll say get router static. Okay. Now let's see what. Let's see if you are able to see any information or not. Okay. Again, 0. Why? Because there is no information. Because there is no configuration. Since there is no configuration, the get command will not be able to fetch you any result, any output. Okay. That is the reason. Okay. Now what we'll do is let's try to figure out what is the ARP information in this particular firewall. So we will say show ARP. Sorry. So this is get ARP. Okay. So the command is basically get system ARP. This would basically let you know the amount of ARP that this firewall has. So you can see over here that you have just one, which is from your port 1 and have the hardware address, and the IP address is 172.16.24.1. Can anybody guess what IP is this? What is the IP address? Why do we see the 172.16.24.1? Okay. See, over here, you have 116.25.28. Okay. And then you have something which is called as 24.1. This is my gateway. Yes. Ati, Shanti, Zishan. Exactly. This is my gateway. Okay. Now, how do I ping this gateway? I'll say execute. I'll say ping. Okay. And then the IP address. So 172.15.24.1. See, pingable. Okay. It is a connected network. Yes. So I'm able to reach the gateway. Now tell me one thing. Chalo, it's a CCNA question, guys. If I'm able to reach the gateway, I don't have any routes on the Fortigate firewall. Would I be able to reach internet? Yes or no? No. Okay. Geraldine says no. Ashish, mostly no. Geraldine also said that we don't have a policy in place. Right. So no. Okay. Let's see. I say execute ping. I need an IP address. So let's say Google IP address. Yeah. 1.1.1. Oops, it is pinging. What happened? What happened? Why am I able to ping? See, it's quite simple enough. Basically, you are getting the IP address from the DHCP server, right? Once you're getting the IP address from the DHCP server, it also provides you with the default gateway, right? I already have the default gateway, so I know how to forward the traffic to the gateway, right? This is what exactly it is, because this is a dynamic information and this DHCP is being used over here. That is the reason. Okay. It's quite small, but then we make sure that you know this whenever. So, and it was a question on the interview as well, that I'm getting an IP address from the DHCP. I don't have any routes. Would I be able to still access the internet or not? So the answer is that depends on whether you got the gateway information from the DHCP as well or not. Because if you got the DHCP information from the DHCP server, then you would be able to access any resources if your basically gateway allows you to do that. Okay. All right. Okay, so let's do one thing. Let's stop over here for today. Okay, and we'll meet tomorrow, same time. Okay, you guys, do one thing. I would like you to we'll basically give you the recordings anyway. I want you to go through this and try to figure out a set up your own setup. Okay, I'll help you in that. Don't worry. I'll provide you the whatever it is required for you to basically prepare the lab. Okay. All right. I'll see you tomorrow. If you have any questions, you let me know before we end the session. Any questions? Okay, so how the cloud ISP is configured with DHCP. So what happens is, one command, so basically you have this network, right? This ISP is basically used as a DHCP server. Okay, so if you right click, edit, okay, this is the management cloud. My management cloud, or the interface on the EVNJ server, is being used as a DHCP. Okay, that is why I'm able to get IP address on my port one. Okay. Mohammed, what you can do is, Mohammed Idris, you can basically, check with the management. They would be able to, let you have the recordings in place. Okay. You can always contact them and you would be able to get the recordings. Okay. But, one thing more, the last two sessions were basically on the YouTube. So you can just, search on the Network Journey YouTube channel. You would be able to get the videos over there as well. Okay, so Pankaj has the question, chassis firewall come with hardware or can we use any router? Chassis firewall. Chassis firewall is basically a different architecture altogether, Pankaj. But the operating system or the FortiOS is the same. So once you understand, or once you know the operating system, right, you would be able to work on that. See, I'll give you an analogy. If you know how to work with Windows 10 machine, it doesn't matter if your laptop is an HP laptop or a Lenovo laptop or a Dell laptop. You would be able to work on the Windows 10, right? Same thing over here as well. Okay. All right. Geraldine, can you just go to the YouTube channel of Network Journey, and you will be able to get the information over there. Just filter out with the 5-in-1 mastery firewall, and you would be able to get the last 2 days of our recording. Okay. Alrighty. I wanted to show you one thing more. Okay. See, this is the website that you can basically go. You can basically go to the networkjourneydotcom. Okay. And then you would be able to see the firewall mastery 5-in-1. Okay. Fortigate is a part of this firewall mastery. And I would like you to go to this particular location and you will see the demo one page. Okay, just click on it, you will see the day one recording, and then the next day recording would also be there. Okay, so you can go through all the two those recordings and get yourself familiarized with the FortiGate firewall, and then we can move forward. Now tomorrow we'll move on with the Windows client machine. We'll log into the FortiGate firewall from the GUI, and I'll show you how exactly the GUI looks like, and other options and features that we have on the firewall. Okay. All right. Okay, guys, I'll stop the session now. I'll meet you up tomorrow and see you soon. Bye bye. Good night.